All right, welcome into the week 2 episode of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. I am, of course, Nick Burt. Jay Walsh is here. Matt Merrifield is here. Jay DeCoster is here. We are all here ready to look ahead to this week 2 in college football. But before we take a look ahead, we got to take a look back. Last week, I would say it probably wasn't our best of weeks. It's week 1, so it's a warm-up. But if we look at our current standings for the currently unnamed, whatever we're going to call the end-of-year winner trophy, whatever. Jay DeCoster, congratulations to you. You sit atop the rankings here at the Merrifield Sportsbook, 5-4. You're the only one that hit their lock last week. So good for you.
Rankings. Well, considering last year was a disaster, we're off to a great start. So
yeah, exactly. Matt Merrifield, you sit in second at 5-6. Obviously, your lock did not hit last week. I sit at 4-5. My lock did not hit. And Jay Walsh, you sit at the bottom, 4-6, 0-1 on the locks. Gentlemen, how are we feeling after last week?
I just want to say that, and I told you this, Nick, over text on Monday night, that I was wrong about Florida State. I thought the public was wrong, and it turns out that I am actually the public, and that sometimes the people are right. Because what the fuck was that? I'm sorry. Guys, Florida State looked putrid. It was disgusting football. It looked uninspired. I don't know what to say. And I love all the commentators going out and saying, well, they got all the talent. They got NFL D tackles. They look like all American players. Great. You just got ran through by Boston College and Nick Castellanos or Thomas Castellanos, whatever the hell his name is. I'll know his name well enough when he torches Michigan State in 2 weeks. But that was disappointing. And I knew going into Monday night at like 6:30, I was like, I got a bad feeling about this game. I should not have made it my lock. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I think Florida State might just be bad. So I've learned my lesson. This week, my picks are much better. We'll be back. Let's ride.
I agree with that sentiment. I got off to a bit of a rough start this season, but there's nowhere to go but up from here. I feel good about the picks this week. I feel like we're starting to hit our stride here a little bit, and I'm excited about the picks this week, like I said, and I'm excited moving forward. Jay Walsh is going to be climbing up those rankings.
I would have to say that that UNC Minnesota game, I was sweating my what off with that. The Minnesota kicker missed that field goal, so that was pretty exciting. And then I didn't even have Miami on my picks, but for my future, they're back. The U is back. Just for now, they're back. Destroying Florida at the Swamp. That was pretty impressive. So, yeah, we're just going to have to continue going. So,
and I also always feel like it's a bad omen when your lock of the week ends up on bad beats on Monday night with Scott Van Pelt. That Lehigh game was disgusting. I don't know why I made that my lock, but hey, I did, and it lost. It lost because Army ran the ball in the last minute when they should have taken a knee. But here we are. We're on to week 2. And before we actually get into the week 2 games, Jay Walsh, you brought this up in the group chat, and I figured you can lead us off. You suggested that we talk about a football watching food ranking. So why don't you just kind of take us through this, and then we'll kind of go on from there.
Yeah, so I was having the conversation with a couple guys that are friends of the program, and the topic actually came up because I was eating a plate of wings while watching the games last week, and I thought to myself, and then I thought to my friends, wings has to be like the top seeded football watching food. Like it has to be. Like even if there are other foods that you like a little bit more, like for example, like I am obviously a big pizza guy, love pizza forever. But in terms of the aesthetic of watching football, I feel like wings has to be number 1. So I'm hoping to get your guys' opinions on this and see kind of where you're at in terms of what you would think is the top football watching food.
I would like to ask, have you seen the new Applebee's commercial with 50-cent wings? No free ads though. With
I
your Lord and Savior Dan Campbell.
absolutely I have, and he is a magical actor, Oscar-worthy performance in my opinion. And yeah, it's a beautiful commercial.
Okay. Well, how do you want to drive this conversation about the do's and don'ts of game day food?
Well, I'll start off by asking you first. You know, Matt, since you're eager to get into this, do you agree that wings is on top? And if not, what is your pick for the top football watching food?
I'm assuming you ordered these wings. You did not
I
make
did
them
not.
yourself.
I did
Okay.
not. They're Costco wings that were heated up in the oven. Yeah, yeah. I'm real fancy like that.
Jesus. All
Um,
right. Okay, I didn't know if they were like ordered from a certain
no,
chain.
no.
Okay, good. Save your money. There is one chain you can, but they are also sponsors of the Pistons. Anyways, I am of the preferred to drink my calories on a game day. I got to be honest. I will delve more into that, and I could delve more into that in like a week when I am actually of age. But until then, I will just leave it at that. But I think for game day food, I think pizza is the play. Pizza is always the play. It's always there for you. I enjoyed a nice Bell's pizza on Thursday night last week after calling Michigan State women's soccer, and I got to sit down and watch Coach Prime almost blow it. I got to watch North Carolina win in a disgusting football game in Minneapolis. So I prefer pizza on a game day, watching the game sitting on my couch doing nothing. But I do like wings, but I think pizza is always the move.
And
See,
that's an
I'm
under.
trying to go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Jeff. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I was gonna say like I'm trying to think of like Super Bowl like because obviously like you make the Super Bowl's the
Super Bowl is
biggest.
different though. Super Bowl is its own thing.
Well, it's still like a football game, and you're just having like you're just having food. Like I'm just trying to think of like other meals. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a meal, but like I feel like nachos would be good. I don't know. I feel like nachos would be like
what is Mary Jo cooking up on a game day, Sunday or Saturday, JDC?
well, she's not the biggest football fan, but for Super Bowl Sunday, and I know the Super Bowl's only one day a year, but she cooks up these very nice nachos with jalapenos in them. They're just very, very good.
I bet the last thing I'll let you guys get to here. I bet Mary Jo makes a mean BCD, buffalo chicken dip. I bet it hits.
She has done that. I think she did that a couple years ago. But no, man, I think pizza's a good one. That's just the classic. And then you can obviously no free ads, but I always go to the Buffalo Wild Wings for sometimes for college football Saturdays in East Lansing. Even though yeah, I mean Buffalo Wild Wings is good, but you know, I mean I like my wings. So I would agree with you, Jay Walsh. So yeah.
Mr. Burt, let's get your opinion.
I do have to ask this before answering. Your wings, did they have anything on them or were they plain?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
They just had kind of your generic wing sauce. And then obviously I'm dipping in ranch because if you use blue cheese, you're a fiend and I hate you. But that's a topic for that's a discussion for a different day. But yeah, so it was kind of just generic sauce. You know, I'm not anything crazy. I'm not one of those guys that's like, I need the spiciest thing on the planet because I hate myself. So I'm good with just kind of your generic buffalo sauce, you know, just have some good wings.
Because what I'm taking into my rankings here is it's got to be good to eat, which I agree, wings are good. But I mean, you're also maybe in public, maybe not, but it's got to be something that's clean to eat. So I think plain wings, if you're dipping them in ranch or something like that, there you go. That's a 1 seed right there. But if you got wings with like a sauce on them, it starts to get messy there. I feel like that downplays them a little bit, which is when like a pizza or a nachos starts to, you know, break through. But I think overall, wings are probably the most versatile out of all of them. I mean, nachos, you can only go so far. I guess with pizza, you can put different things on them, but still it's not the same. So I guess I would agree with you, but there's definitely major limitations with wings, I think.
For sure. And you guys all bring up, you know, valid points. Going back to Matt's point, like I said, I am a big pizza guy. I love me some pizza. In terms of if I was just ranking pure food rankings, pizza would 100% be over wings. But I just feel like the aesthetics of a good plate of wings just fits the watching football in a bar vibe. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm going for with the football watching food. So I feel like wings has to earn the top spot just simply because of the aesthetic appeal.
I mean, you do make good points. Like going to a bar, what's like the number one thing that comes to mind if you're going to watch a football game? It's wings. Like pizza.
I
guess,
know Matt Merrifield agrees with you 100% there.
I plead the fifth until for the next 5 days.
I'll go with my beverage choice, but
yeah,
exactly. Next week we can discuss best beverage choice on a game day.
Yeah,
I'll drive that conversation, pedal to the metal. But
Matt, we will book that for next week. But I feel like
maybe a certain fictitious sponsor of the Merrifield Sportsbook will be referenced. But anyways,
who knows? You never know what could happen here on the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. Maybe we will get them sponsored by next week. You never know.
big time.
But I say, Jay Walsh, that was beautiful discussion because you did bring up some great points there. But I think it is time to divulge into what is week 2 of the college football season. Feel like this is a better slate than week 1, I would say. It feels like we got a lot more better games. And it all starts off on Sunday right at noon at the Big House in Ann Arbor. It is Texas going in as a 7.5-point favorite, going up against, of course, Michigan. The over-under is 42.5. This line has seen major movement since I would probably say when it was posted on Sunday. I know there were like the future lines that was posted in like April, but it doesn't really hit significantly until it's the week of. I believe Texas opened up at like 3.5, 4-point favorites right around there. To balloon up to 7.5, I think is saying a lot. So, Matt, we'll start with you on this one. This definitely feels like it's week 2. Obviously, we saw what both teams did in week 1, but it kind of feels like this may be a make or break game for Michigan to start this season.
Well, I mean, if you watched that game on Saturday night against Fresno State, the offense looked less than ideal. Shout out CFB 25 cover athlete Donovan Edwards for a not stellar first half or game in general. Even though I overheard people in the dining hall this week calling Fresno State an FCS school. Don't know where that came from. Fresno State's a very good Power 5 or Group of 5 team, and could still make the college football playoff. But anyways, I am taking whatever the over is on the number of times Joel Klatt has to change his shorts in this game, because I don't know if he's going to be able to pick a favorite team in this game, because we all know how he feels about the University of Michigan. Now, no J.J. McCarthy, no Jim Harbaugh, no Shea Patterson. He's going to have to find something, dig into something on the Michigan side, and Texas is Texas with Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning. But in the actual picks of this game, I think I would have to lean Texas. I think Texas in the under is probably the play. I think the under is the best play in this game. 2 strong defenses. Michigan might be the best unit in the country, and they showed out against a very good Fresno State offense last week. Offense is a different story, and I think Texas could go out and win this game 17-0, 24-0. Michigan's going to be hard pressed to score any points. That offense last week was awful, and not that Michigan State has any room to talk, because that was also a terrible performance, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I think the value is 7.5 points on the road, but I think Vegas knows they wouldn't put that line if they didn't see what everybody in America saw on NBC on Saturday night, and that is Michigan's offense is worse than maybe we expected.
Yeah, I mean, Davis Warren, he looks awful, and Orgy can't throw the football, so it's just going to be power run. Michigan's going to be their Iowa's offense from last year or still this year. No quarterback.
Hey, Iowa's back. They shut out
40.
Illinois State, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out the Redbirds. But no, look, Michigan's defense is still going to be a problem. Will Johnson's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I'm expecting a low-scoring game. The under is very favorable in this one. But I think Michigan can keep it close. I think 7.5. I think Michigan can keep it pretty close. So I'm going to lean Michigan plus the 7.5. Texas wins in a close one. But yeah, I definitely would lean the under. If I'm not going to take the spread in this game. If I wouldn't bet the spread in this game, definitely would lean the under though, because Michigan's offense is just really, really bad, and their defense is still very good. So yeah.
So going into this week, I felt very strongly that I was going to go with Texas in this game. And when it opened up at the 3.5 that it opened up at, I felt very good about that pick. I feel worse about taking Texas minus 7.5. I think that's a lot to be giving on the road. And the way I look at this game is, I think if this is a close game, I think Michigan wins. It's Texas. If Texas is going to win this game, they're going to win it by 2 or more scores. This is because Michigan's style of play, which is heavy defense, we're going to run the ball, short, efficient, quick passes. They're going to stay in most games. And if Texas can figure out a way to create separation, they're going to run away with it. I think if it's a close game, I think Michigan wins this game. I would say my pick is that I am going to hesitantly take Texas, but I don't love it. I think, like I said, if Texas wins the game, which I think they will win by 2 or more scores. I think if it's inside 10 points, I think Michigan ends up on top.
And I mean, this is somewhat a spoiler, but not really. I have Texas in my parlay this week. I do have some actual money on the line when it opened. So that would have been Sunday afternoon. You just couldn't resist that number because Jay Walsh, I agree with you. If Texas is going to win this game, they're going to do it by double digits probably. If this stays close, it could be anybody's game. That Michigan defense, like we said, they still look really good on defense. It's just that offense there's nothing there. It does somewhat remind me of, I mean, they're currently sitting at 0-2, but it does somewhat remind me of this Florida State team we've seen so far, where quarterback play is just basically holding down this offense. Like, I feel like this Michigan offense could be good, but they don't have the quarterback for it. Like I said, I have Texas winning this game. They returned a lot of starters from last year. They still look really good. Obviously, Colorado, both teams played a team from the Mountain West. Colorado State is not Fresno State in the Mountain West, like level-wise. Fresno State won the conference last year. They're returning most of their starters. Texas, they're just the better team here. And I feel like if they are going to make a run at a potential national title this year, this is kind of the game to start setting that up. I mean, we kind of look back at that 2019 LSU team. They had that huge win. I think it was week 2 at Texas, and that kind of just catapulted their season. And I kind of wouldn't be surprised if Texas does the same in this one in Ann Arbor. I still think like that's probably the best game we have on the slate this weekend, but we do have some more like games that are quite interesting. One of them being Arkansas traveling to Oklahoma State. Both teams coming off big wins. Oklahoma State is a 7.5 point favorite in this one. The over-under is 62.5. JDC, we'll start with you on this one. Both teams, I mean, they looked really good to start the season. Obviously, Oklahoma State had a little bit of trouble to begin with South Dakota State, but, you know, Alan Bowman figures things out, and Oklahoma State's 1-0. Arkansas under Bobby Petrino, well, not under Bobby Petrino, but his offense now, they looked really good last week. Obviously, it was Arkansas Pine Bluff, but what do you think about this game, JDC?
Yeah, how about a nice 70 piece for Bobby Petrino's offense? I got Oklahoma State, and is actually part of my parlay. I like Ollie Gordon. I think they're going to run the rock a lot. He's one of the best backs in the country. I think Oklahoma State has something to prove this year in the Big 12. And Arkansas, they're not a very good football team. They're kind of in a rebuild right now. Going on the road to Boone Pickens is not easy. So I'm going to lean Oklahoma State, but I don't love it. So I'm going to I would lean Oklahoma State with this one, so it's -7.5.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, JDC. I am not a fan of teams that schedule nobodies to play in week 1, and obviously with Arkansas scheduling Arkansas Pine Bluff and beating them 70-0, I don't think we really learned a whole lot about them. I think, as JDC said, Ollie Gordon's going to be the best player in this game. He might be the best running back in the country. He's a fantastic player. I think Oklahoma State gets it done, especially at home. So I would, like JDC said, I would lean Oklahoma State -7.5. I don't necessarily feel super confident in it, but I would lean Oklahoma State here.
I am actually going to be on the contrary to you two. I was not moved I wasn't moved by either team in week 1. Obviously, Arkansas Pine Bluff is a nobody. South Dakota State is a very good FCS school, but I mean, Oklahoma State, the expectation is for them to play like they didn't. I think Bobby Petrino's offense looked better. Obviously, we're going to find out this week on the road against an Oklahoma State team that typically has a very good defense. But Oklahoma State's identity is running the football. And Arkansas, while not a very good SEC team, still big up front, still strong. They revamped their offense, a bunch of new transfers on the offensive side, but they return a lot of guys on a defense last year that was still pretty solid. Their biggest, I keep seeing everybody's all over the over at 62.5, which I think is interesting. It feels like a lot of points. I know both these teams put up big numbers this week, but I don't think that necessarily translates. I wouldn't make a pick on anything in this game. I think I would probably lean Arkansas just to cover. I don't think they really have a shot at winning this game, but I think it's one of those lower scoring, just beat up battles between these two teams. And eventually Oklahoma State wins, but I would probably lean the under in this one. But I lean the under a lot of games this week, I feel like.
Yeah, there seem to be a lot of over-unders out there this week that just seem kind of, out there with how large they are. This does kind of seem to be one of them. So, Matt, I'm kind of with you, leaning on the under here. I personally wouldn't play anything in this game. It kind of feels like one of those weird trap games for Oklahoma State. Like Arkansas, yes, they're a Power 4 team, but they haven't been one of the better ones the past few years. I still think the Cowboys find a way to get it done in this one. They are expected to, run the ball a lot with Ollie Gordon. I think he's just a game changer. I know Jay Walsh and JDC mentioned it. He's going to be the best running back in the nation this year. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. Oklahoma State, they should win this game being at home, but things obviously can get a little weird at Boone Pickens Stadium, and a lot of things can happen there. So moving on, we'll move on to our Michigan State Spartans. They travel on the road to Maryland this week. Maryland has now jumped to a 9.5-point favorite. It opened up at 7.5. The over-under is 44.5. Jay Walsh, we'll start with you. Last week wasn't a great showing. 16-10 victory over Florida Atlantic. Defense looked really good. Offense, not so much. What are your big takeaways from last week for the Spartans? And then kind of what are your thoughts going into this week, into conference play against Maryland?
So my big takeaways for MSU last week, obviously it's against Florida Atlantic. So everything good that you see, you take with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I really loved what I saw from the defense last week, particularly up front. I thought the defensive line played fantastic last week. They really, for the most part, stuffed the run on the day. They had Cam Fancher running for his life and often sliding for his life and taking his helmet off for his life. But, that's another.
Find a helmet that fits.
Yes. Yeah. I am all about that. I was very not happy with Cam Fancher last week, but again, that's a different discussion. As for the offense, obviously they had their struggles. Aiden Childs in his first start and didn't necessarily look great, but he had his moments where he looked solid. Obviously, the 2 interceptions are not ideal. The first one really was not his fault. It was a pass that should have been caught by Montorie Foster. The second one was a freshman mistake. So I think you're willing to live with that. And looking ahead to this game against Maryland, I think the big thing to think about with MSU's offense is I saw a lot of people talk about it on Twitter the last couple days. Pro Football Focus has the 4 lowest ranked players on Michigan State's team in the first game. The 4 lowest rated players were Aiden Childs, Montori Foster, Nate Carter, and then I forget who the 4th was, but it was somebody, I think it was Jack Velling. And I mean, those are arguably our 4 most important players on offense. So assuming that they all don't have some of the worst games of their careers again this week, I think we'll see a little bit more consistency in the offense. Obviously, Maryland looked very solid in their first game. Quarterback looked very good. It's going to be a tough test for Michigan State. I think MSU covers the 9.5. I don't necessarily know that they end up winning the game, but I do think they keep it within the 10-point spread.
Matt, you have a interesting situation other than me in JDC, as you are actually on campus. So you were at the game on Friday. What is kind of the pulse of campus right now? What are the kind of the feelings after game 1 and looking forward to game 2? What are kind of the feelings going on around East Lansing right now?
It honestly, it's kind of weird. It feels like nobody cares almost. Like there's a sense of, in years past, after week 1, everybody's talking, and this week it feels like nobody's talking about the game. I go to class or something and nobody's saying anything. I bet if I asked a random classmate in my English class earlier today, they probably wouldn't have been able to tell me who Michigan State plays this weekend, and even though it's a conference opponent. So from my perspective, even though I was laughing hysterically on Friday night during that fourth quarter because Allie was sitting next to me losing her mind thinking that they were going to blow it. So was her father. And I'm sitting there laughing because I thought that was the funniest thing on planet Earth, that Michigan State genuinely had a chance at losing that game because Jonathan Smith was too stupid to kick a field goal to go up 2 scores. And I don't care that he apologized after the game and said it was a mistake. You should have, in the moment, known that it was a mistake and just kicked the field goal, because you have an all-conference level kicker in Jonathan Kim. You have a good long snapper. Again, you have a good holder. Kick the field goal, get the 3 points. You were not running the ball well enough. My issue is the offense, I think, will progress. Will it progress enough in the last 6 days to be ready, or I guess at a full week to get prepared for Maryland? We'll see. Maryland played a not very good UConn team. Sorry, Nick. But everybody's talking about the Spartan defense. 2 years ago, Michigan State played Akron. And they played Western week 1, but they played Akron week 2, and they forced like 5 turnovers, like 3 fumbles. Everybody was talking about how fast they looked, and it was Akron. And now I know Florida Atlantic is better than that Akron team a couple years ago, but I don't know if the defense is that improved. I think there are some guys that I like. Some of the newcomers seem to be pretty good, but we're really going to find out where this team is at. Like if you said this team was going to win 8 games, you said this team was going to win 4 games. We will find out this weekend. We will know. We will have a much better idea, because that Florida Atlantic team wasn't good. And I expect the offense to be better. I hope the offensive line, specifically the tackle, specifically the right tackle. Ashton Lepo was playing patty cake at right tackle on Friday night, and it was awful. And it looked like Michigan State only had 3 offensive linemen on each snap. So is the best. Or the both defenses are the better units. Obviously, Maryland's still adjusting to not having Talia Tagovailoa, who is crushing it in the CFL. So I think the unders
CFL mentioned 2 weeks in a row.
Hope that it's just so low scoring that Michigan State stays with the 10.
Yeah,
but I think I'm staying away. I never like picking Michigan State games, so I'm abstaining from a pick. But take the under. It's 44, I think, is what we have on the sheet. Yeah, 42.5. I'd still take it. As long as it doesn't get below 40, take it.
Yeah, I would agree with Matt. I don't really know. I would stay away from the spread in this game. I just don't know, because we don't know what Maryland is. I mean, they have a new quarterback. They beat a bad UConn team. If you heard that, sorry, my apologies. But yeah, I would just say take the under as well. But yeah, the offense just looked bad. I mean, we were sitting right underneath the Spartan Stadium scoreboard. We saw Christian Phillips on that screen pass completely whiff his block. Christian Phillips, the right guard, just the offensive line just bad as a whole. Like you said, Matt Lepo's just not really struggled. But yeah, I mean, I would take the under. I would probably lean MSU plus the 9.5, but the offense is just a huge work in progress. We don't know what this offense still is yet. It was just bad week 1. It's going to take some time, and yeah, Childs needs he has a lot of work to do. So,
and I mean, I kind of agree with everything that's been said. I think part of the Childs thing, it was his first game starting at QB. He played I think 9 games last year. He didn't start them, but he was put in 9 games last year at points. He kind of did play an Alex Orji type role for Oregon State last year for what Orji did for Michigan last year. I'm hoping that it, gets better as time goes on, but we're going to find out a lot about this team this week. The Maryland, everybody said that it was a bad UConn team. I completely agree. But Maryland, they're always good in September. Come October and November, they're not good, but they usually get a lot of their wins in September. So it's going to be a real test for Jonathan Smith and the Spartans going into week 2. Matt, you got something else?
I just quickly would like to come to the aid of Aiden Childs. I didn't think he was the most concerning player on offense on Friday night. I thought the offensive line was the bigger issue. And I thought the receivers, specifically Montori Foster, looked like he didn't even want to be out there. And then last thing is the injuries. Losing Dylan Tatum for the year sucks. Losing Alante Brown isn't the worst because it means more Nick Marsh, but it does suck because this receiver room isn't very deep. So I would have rather just seen Brown get less snaps and still be available, because now Isaiah Johnson, who had one nice catch, is going to really be relied upon, and Nick Marsh. But we'll see. I'm still cautiously optimistic going into this game, but I have no idea if they're going to cover the 9.5.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a real test. We have crossed as of recording, the 9 o'clock hour in the Eastern time zone. So if you hear a lot less from Jay DeCoster the rest of this episode, he is currently doing a fantasy draft because I believe, Jay, you said it got moved like very late to 8 p.m. Central. So yes, you will be multitasking during this.
Well, we just selected Breece Hall. So any early thoughts from from the gambling committee on Breece Hall? Probably none.
Was Bijan still there?
No, he was long gone.
Okay. Then I guess it's okay. I'm not a huge Breece Hall fan this year, just because I think the Jets' offense is being vastly overrated heading into the season. But I obviously it's still a decent pick.
Jay, what pick did you have? Let's do that.
I had 5. So Amon-Ra would be the next best player. I mean, I had to go. I like running back. I like taking running backs.
I might have taken Amon-Ra, but hey,
let me ask you this:
well,
is it a PPR league or non-PPR?
Yes, it is a PPR league. Yes.
Oh, then I'm sorry, JDC, but Amon-Ra was the pick. Amon-Ra is going to catch like 140 passes this year.
Breece Hall can catch out of the backfield too. We'll see.
We'll see. We shall.
We'll save the fantasy football talk for later.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll save it for later. Let's move on. This game got added on late to this card. 1, because I forgot it, and 2, because I feel like it's just picking up intrigue as the week goes on. Kansas is traveling to Champaign to take on the Fighting Illini. Kansas is a 5.5 point favorite. The over-under is 55.5. This is officially the first sellout game at Memorial Stadium for Illinois since 2016. Brett Bielema hype is going crazy right now in Champaign. Matt, we'll start with you. This feels like it's kind of a trap game for Kansas, but things get weird in Champaign. So
I don't feel like it's a trap game for Kansas. I understand that going on the road to a Power 4 opponent, Brett Bielema's teams are usually really strong. But honestly, the last, 2-3 years that Kansas has slowly built themselves up into this top 25, annually. Feels like every week they're between 25 and 20 in the AP poll. As long as Jalen Daniels is healthy, this team's really dangerous. And I mean, Lance Leipold has built something awesome at Kansas, and yes, going on the road, but I mean, this team doesn't. Everybody's worried about their home schedule. I mean, going on the road, I don't think will be that much of an issue. And I understand it's a sellout. Champaign's a tough place to play. It's a night game early in the year, but I don't think Illinois is all that hot. Like, I think Illinois is going to be one of the bottom teams in the Big Ten this year. Luke Altmaier had his first career 4-touchdown game against Eastern Illinois. Shout out Jimmy G. But I mean, Kansas, they did their thing against Lindenwood, noted NCAA hockey regional host. But I mean, I just, there isn't much that does it for me for Illinois. And on the Kansas side, Jalen Daniels is the best player on the football field. And it's only, what is it, 5.5? I mean, it's a part of my parlay. I think Kansas can easily win this game by a touchdown. Do I think it'll be a giant blowout? No, but they can win this game by 2 scores. I think no questions asked.
Jay, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so no, I agree, Matt. Kansas is a good football team. In Illinois, look, they're going to give you fits. Look, and Brett Bielema's got a good defense. I mean, they're always going to give you fits. I mean, it's on the road. I mean, Illinois is not a tough place to play at all, but I'm going to lean Kansas in this spot. It's tough on the road, but I mean, look, Jalen Daniels is a very good quarterback. Kansas will be pretty good this year. I think they can take care of business against a pretty mid to bad Illinois team with no offense, but that defense can give them some fits though. So this is not a play I would recommend, but I would lean Kansas minus the 5.5. Yes.
I am gonna have to disagree with the two of you. This game is a part of my parlay this week. I've got Illinois plus 5.5. I was actually the one who kind of suggested that we include this game to Nick Burt before the show started, just simply because I think this is going to be one of the sneaky great games this week. I think this is going to be a very exciting game. Obviously, you've got two programs that are kind of slowly but surely have been on the rise recently, and both kind of gaining traction into being respectable football programs. And you've got kind of opposite ways of going about it. Obviously, you've got Jalen Daniels, who is, while he is an electric playmaker, I'm not quite sure that he's 100% all that yet. Obviously, we have yet to really see him in a full healthy season yet. So I'll reserve judgment on him. But obviously they've got a solid offense. You've got Illinois on the defensive side of the ball has the last couple of years, they've been very solid. And I think the fact that they've got the sellout crowd going, they're believing in this team. They're believing in Brett Bielema. I would not be surprised to see Illinois be a sneaky pick for a 8 or 9 win season here. I would have to double check their schedule, but I could easily see them winning 8 or 9 games this year. And I am going with Illinois to cover the plus 5.5 that they are getting at home.
And I personally not going to touch the spread on this game. I feel like the Kansas offense is really good. And I think the Illinois defense is probably right around that same level. It's going to be tough for this Kansas team to get points. But then on the other side of the ball, the Kansas defense and the Illinois offense, I don't think they're the greatest things in the world. The one play I would lean here is the under 55.5. I think that's quite a large number. This should be, like you said, Jay Walsh, I think this probably is one of the more sneaky good games this week. I feel like not a ton of people are talking about it. See a few people talking about it, but it's not like on the levels of, the Michigan-Texas game or, basically any other game this week. It should be interesting. I'll be interested to see what happens in this game. I think it's the better of the early late night window this week. That 7:00 window. I think it's one of the better games there. But like I said, I'd probably lean more towards the under here. Matt, did you have something else?
I mean, I'm not sure what the numbers are of teams playing, obviously, with week 1. A lot of teams play Thursday and play Friday night. I'd be interested to actually know what the numbers are in terms of how they do the following week, getting that extra day, because Kansas played Thursday night. So they do get 2 extra days to get rested and get prepped.
I believe, didn't Illinois play on Thursday or Friday.
I
I
believe
think
they played Saturday. I thought they played on Saturday.
I could.
No,
I
they played
could
on
be-
Thursday too. So never mind.
Okay.
Okay, scratch that. No, you're right. They played on. I'm looking at their schedule right now. Even with a win today, Illinois still might not make a bowl game. They go to Nebraska in 2 weeks, to Penn State. They host Michigan, to Oregon, and they go to Piscataway. On top of playing Michigan State. Not that that matters. They very much could win that football game, but I mean, this is Illinois schedule's pretty tough this year. I do think they're a solid team, but I think it could still be a close game. But at 5.5, you're saying Kansas could win on a touchdown late in the game, and they still cover. So that's why I still lean Kansas in this game. And they don't need to win by a lot; they pretty much just have to win by a score. So,
yeah, like you said, this should be quite an intriguing game because, like you said, Kansas could win this by a score and still cover. We'll move on to it's the Big Ten Saturday night, I think, technically for NBC, whatever it's called. It is Deion Sanders' Colorado team traveling to Lincoln to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska is a 7.5-point favorite, and we do have somebody among us representing the Merrifield Sportsbook at this game. That is Mr. Jay DeCoster himself. You will be in attendance in Lincoln on Saturday night. You are, I believe this will be your first time in Lincoln. What are you looking forward to? And, what are you expecting from this game?
Yeah, so I got a buddy that graduated from Nebraska who invited me out there. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. I want to go out there. And I think the most thing I'm exciting thing I'm looking forward to is the tailgating, but also when they shoot those balloons out when they score a touchdown. That's pretty cool. And also the tunnel walk. I'm excited for it. And in terms of this game, I mean, you got Baby Mahomes versus Shador. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better quarterback matchup than that. I would take the over in this game. I think this can be high scoring. Colorado's defense is really bad. Nebraska's offense can put up some points, and then you got Shador on the other side. In terms of spread, I'd probably take Colorado to cover. I just think 7.5 is too much in a rivalry game like this. But I can also see Nebraska winning by like 2 touchdowns. So I would lay off the spread. I would definitely take the over, though. So I'm looking forward to it in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Jay, first off, sick invite. Would have loved to have joined you on your expedition to Lincoln.
Yes.
But the play this weekend, and I did not put in my parlay because I need to stop picking with my heart because gambling with your heart loses you a lot of games.
Yes.
But I'm all over the Cornhuskers this weekend. I'm all over the Cornhuskers. This game, Nebraska's defense, I know it was UTEP. It was UTEP, but still, Nebraska looked really good defensively, and they're so strong in the trenches. Even when they were bad with Scott Frost, they were good in the trenches. They were good in the trenches last year, and now they have a real quarterback, and now their offense actually looks impressive. I can't wait to watch Nebraska and absolutely put their foot on Colorado's throat. And this is a rivalry game. This is night game in Lincoln. I can't wait. I'm excited to sit down after Michigan State probably loses by 20 to Maryland and then just unwind and watch Matt Rule do his thing.
I have ordered a cheap Nebraska t-shirt for this game, so I'll be dressed in red. Nebraska might be my second favorite Big Ten team after this game. So,
well, I'm kind of in the rare opportunity. I get to agree with both of you. I agree with Matt that I think Nebraska is the play here. Obviously, you've got Shador Sanders and the great receivers at Colorado, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn. I mean, they're gonna put up points regardless. I mean, Nebraska's defense, as good as they can look, obviously against a lesser opponent like that, they're gonna get scored on by Colorado. There's no kind of denying that. But I really like the way that Dylan Raiola looked in his first collegiate game. Obviously, it's hard to tell against a team that is not very good, but he looked very solid. He looked poised. He looked like he knew what he was doing. And in terms of this game, I agree with Jay that the over is the play because, like I said, Colorado's going to put up points, and I think Nebraska is going to give them right back. So I would go with Nebraska minus 7.5 here, and I would go with the over 58.5. And I am, as much as he flamed out in the pros, Matt Rule is a very solid college football coach. I think he knows what he's doing. He'll have his boys ready, and they'll be able to get the job done.
I think we are all in agreement here. Nebraska is the play in this game. I think any hope that people somewhat had of Colorado kind of dissipated after that North Dakota State game. I mean, they won the game, but they looked putrid. Whoever's still putting Colorado in their AP top 25 deserves to lose their vote. I think it was the same person. I believe it was Mike Hall. I don't want to call out names, but I believe it was Mike Hall, the Fox Sports, studio host. He has had Colorado at 25 in his preseason poll and after week 1 poll. So sorry, Mike, but you deserve to lose your vote. But this Colorado team, I don't think is going to be good, but I do think they'll put up a lot of points in this game. It's just Nebraska is going to come right back because this Colorado defense isn't good. Jay, the major thing for you, are you going to eat a Runza sandwich when you are in Lincoln?
Well, I've never even heard of that, but thank you for telling me because I'm going to ask my friend who is a diehard Nebraska fan. He's lived there for the last 5 years, and I'm going to ask him about that. And you know what? Maybe I'll give it a try. I'm excited to indulge in whatever you said that is. So,
I believe,
Jay, I am going to have to ask you to do me a favor and give your friend my condolences because I don't know that I can think of a worse punishment than having to live in Nebraska for 5 years. Obviously, it's all about football there, but that sounds like a very unpleasant experience. So just as somebody who has been to Nebraska once and it was enough. So.
Yeah, I mean, I told my parents, I'm like, I tell you, yeah, I'm going to Nebraska. I was like, why are you going to Nebraska? I was like, to watch a football game. I was like, oh, okay, because that's all they have over there. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to do over there. No, with all due respect, I mean, there's nothing to do out there in Lincoln except that they love their football. So, yeah.
Give Fred Hoiberg a big kiss for me if you see him.
Yes, exactly. I hope Casey Tominaga's back for that game.
Father of Michigan State basketball legend Jack Hoiberg, Steadback Jack.
Exactly. Maybe Scott Frost will make a return.
I doubt that. Jay, we're going to need a full report on this game next week, but it is time to move on. It is Tennessee, a 7.5-point favorite, going up against NC State, a team that struggled with West Carolina at points last week. The over-under is 60.5. I believe this game is being played in Charlotte, so we got another neutral site game. Last week, the big story, QB-wise of the week, was the emergence of Nico Iamaleava. I don't know if I just pronounced that correct, but I 100% believe he is the quarterback that Matt thinks Noah Fafita is. This dude, I mean, he looks insane. He may be a dark horse Heisman contender. Matt, I know you probably want to rebuttal what I just said. So
I don't want to rebuttal, actually. Noah Fafita last week looked good. Tyrell McMillan just looked great, to be completely honest. I mean, Arizona looks fine. Their defense stinks, whatever. But Nico, I know it was Nuga. I know it was week 1. But I have found the replacement for Anthony Richardson on the Indianapolis Colts. I feel good about that. I know that in 2 years, I have a new quarterback that I can look forward to, and it has to be him because his arm talent is so good. He threw some really nice passes. I know it's Chattanooga, but the ball placement was still there. I hate this game because I think NC State's still good. I still think they're one of the better teams in this ACC that appears to not be very good. I know Miami looked really good. I still think NC State can find their footing. Grayson McCall, another one of those new quarterbacks in the new system. Game 1, they'll figure it out. Will he figure it out in time against a Tennessee team that I think is top 10 worthy? I don't know. 7.5 points is a lot of points for a top 20 matchup. So I wouldn't touch this game. I guess I would lean Tennessee because I think they're that good. But I think the over is the play. A lot of points can be scored in this game.
Okay. Before we go to anybody else, Matt, what was the stat that you sent me about Anthony Richardson starts today? Because I mean, that was it was hilarious.
I believe I have to go back and Anthony Richardson, this is a true statement, and I even confirmed it myself. Anthony Richardson has started 7 games since graduating from high school. And he's the starting quarterback in his second year in the NFL. 17 games. 2020 is freshman year at Florida, 21, 22. Those were his 3 years at Florida. And then 23 was for the Colts. So 4 years and 4 seasons, he started 17 games. And somehow I still have people trying to convince me that he's this franchise guy and he's the next Cam Newton and he's the next Christ and this and that and the other. And it's BS. And I'm tired of it. And I can't wait till Sunday at 1:00 when the Texans come into Indianapolis and probably embarrass the shit out of them. But at least I'll be safe in my heart knowing at least I was right, even though my team sucks and Jim Irsay screwed over the franchise by wasting a fourth overall pick on a guy who can't hit a broadside of a barn.
So can I ask you this? Obviously, you're a Colts fan. Why don't you root for Anthony Richardson? Why are you rooting against the guy? I get
because he stinks.
You need,
if I had any ounce of belief in this guy, I want him to be good.
And I rooted for him.
Jay, give me a real reason why I think this guy will be good.
Could
he be good? Because he could be. I could also win $1 million tonight.
Yeah, he could be good. I agree with you. I don't think he'll be very good, but he's still got a root.
But I have zero evidence to actually believe that this guy can figure out how to complete 60%. That's all I ask, 60% of his passes, and he can't do that.
He also has
he's never done it at any level.
I also like
but they think he's all of a sudden going to do it in the NFL.
Well, Matt, just to kind of go based off of what you said earlier, you talked about how you're very excited for Nico to make his way to the Colts based on his arm talent. Anthony Richardson has quite the arm as well. He's got a lot of arm talent. That's one of his major draws. So I mean, you gotta kind of pick your poison there. Obviously, like you said, he doesn't have the huge sample size.
Can actually complete his damn passes.
Again, Nico, we've seen play 1 game against Chattanooga.
Right. And I fully reserve the right to change my opinion if he goes out and goes 12 for 30 and throws 3 picks. Yeah. Actually, at least if they were picks, somebody caught him because Richardson can't even hit his defender. So.
Oh man! All right, I think it might be time.
I don't know.
To start talking about the game just to
NC State or Tennessee, Jay. I don't know why Joe Milton gets brought up. Not Joe Milton. Damn, I wish I had Joe Milton.
I'm about to make a pick here. So wait, Jay Walsh, did you even go yet?
I have not, but you can go ahead.
Okay, well I'm about to pick here, so I want you to go ahead first. My apologies.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead. But yeah, I think so. This is kind of a weird game. I agree with Matt that I would kind of like to stay away from that 7.5 line simply because obviously, as we've already discussed, Nico, I believe I'm going to say this correctly, Iamaleava. I think that's right. I 100% could be wrong, but I'm going to choose to believe I'm right. I mean, he obviously looked phenomenal for a guy starting his first collegiate game, but it was against Chattanooga, obviously. So I think he'll be playing against a obviously much tougher defense in NC State. As we said, I mean, they were my preseason pick to win the ACC. Obviously, we've seen that the ACC, with the exception of maybe Miami thus far, has been pretty dog shit. But I still think that they are a decent quality team, especially they're deep on the defensive side of the ball. I think they are a team that can, especially after Nico basically just played a cupcake week 1, I think it's going to be a tough test for him playing an actual defense in week 2. I think they keep it closer than people think. I don't know that they necessarily cover. If I had to put money on this game, I'd say probably Tennessee minus 7.5, but I think North Carolina State keeps it closer than a lot of people think this game is going to be.
I just want to point out that Nico did start the bowl game last year for Tennessee against Iowa, and they won 35-0.
That was Iowa.
Yes, he hasn't started a lot. He still has a small sample size. I mean, that is almost a benefit to him because while Iowa can't score to save their life, they do have a very strong defense. So take it with a grain of salt. This guy has started against a real team before. So go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, no, Nico's a hell of a talent. I mean, he looked really good albeit against Chattanooga. I don't know. I mean, NC State didn't look great, but this is a game at home at night. I mean, it's gonna be a tough atmosphere. Tennessee is gonna be very, very good this year. I think. I just think, I agree with the two of you. I'd stay away from this game for spread reasons. I would probably lean NC State to keep it close, plus the 7.5. I don't love that pick, but NC State's still very, very talented. Grayson McCall in his 10th year in college collecting Social Security. I think he's a veteran presence on that team. So, I think NC State can definitely keep this close. And they're still a very, very solid football team, even though despite that bad performance last week. So,
yeah, and I feel like since all of you are saying that you're staying away from the game spread reasons, I should also probably stay away. But this game is in my parlay. I am fully on board this Tennessee train. I'm taking a minus 7.5. I know it was Chattanooga, but Nico, I mean, he looks like a front runner for the September Heisman Award right now through week one. You just sometimes see a quarterback and it just looks different, and he is one of those. I think I won't say easily win this game, but I do think they end up winning by double digits. So that obviously would be a cover there. I mean, I think this Tennessee team could make the playoffs. I don't know if that's completely out there, but I think they're a real contender with this expanded playoff of being one of those at-large teams, because I don't think they win the SEC, but I do think they have enough wins at the end of the year to make it into a playoff. So given that, we'll move into the last game we have to preview on here, and then we'll get into our picks. It is the late night game live, I believe, only on Peacock. It is Boise State traveling to Eugene to face off against Oregon. Oregon is an 18.5-point favorite. We got Matt wearing the Ducks. I'm wearing the Ducks. I mean, we're both repping the Ducks here. Matt, that's just a beautiful shirt there. But this Oregon team, they did not look good last week. And in comes a Boise State team who, I mean, they let up a lot of points on Georgia Southern, but they scored just as many and more. Boise State, they look like a real threat. Boise State, 3-0 all time against Oregon. So Oregon looking for their first ever victory against Boise State. Jay Walsh, we'll start with you on this one. Oregon, I mean, that was a tough watch last week. If you were just a stat watcher, Dylan Gabriel had an outstanding game, but that didn't really tell the whole story, as they kind of just squeaked by Idaho.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a tough watch. It was made easier for me by the fact that I was watching it with one of my hometown Farmington friends who actually went to Oregon. And so obviously he was not having a very good time watching that game. But it's week one. I'm not going to put too much stock into a bad performance. They were able to pull it out. They were able to kind of create a little bit of separation there at the end of that game. They were able to get the job done enough to kind of get things going. And obviously, like you said, Dylan Gabriel's stat line looked phenomenal. So, I mean, I don't think they have to worry too much about him. I think he's going to be just fine. And honestly, Boise State is always a very solid pick. They are always a team that's going to give Power 5, Power 4 teams a difficult run. They're always towards the top of the Mountain West. Honestly, I was very concerned to see that they gave up that many points to Georgia Southern last week. I was not expecting that to happen. I was expecting them to kind of roll over that game. So I think that's a big thing, and I think Dylan Gabriel is going to have a big-time game. I think Oregon is in for a bounce back. I'm taking Oregon minus 18.5 here, and I am also taking the over.
Matt, we'll go with you next. One of two people wearing Oregon here. So, I mean, obviously last week was rough, but what are your thoughts coming into this week?
Yeah, that's a lot of points for a team that we claim. I don't want to say we. I don't know if anybody on the show said it last week or 2 weeks ago, but I don't claim that Boise State's the best Group of 5 team in the country. But certain narratives have been pushed that they're a top Group of 5 team. So that seems like a lot of points. I get it's at night in Eugene, one of the toughest places to play in the country. I mean, I believe in Dan Lanning's ability to get his team to turn around. I mean, in the few times Oregon hasn't played well in his time, and is now going into his third year, double down. So I'm want to lean Oregon, especially like Jay Walsh brought up. Boise State gave up a lot of points last week to a Georgia Southern team that's fine. So Oregon's really good defensively on the defensive line. They're good. Offensive line needs some work, as we saw. Now, Nick, you sent me the message boards of Oregon claiming that the offensive line may or may not have had too much fun the night before the game. If that's true, I could believe it the way they played. That was awful. And as much as, we've seen other teams struggle on their offensive line this year with new additions and stuff, Oregon shouldn't have that issue. They're too good, and they've been too good on the offensive line the last couple of years. Even before Dan Lanning got there. So I would probably take Oregon. I wouldn't touch the over at 61.5. I think Oregon's going to put up some points. They know they need to kind of bounce back and prove. And after we, JDC and Nick, you guys go give their picks, but it feels like everybody sucked last week. Like there was only a couple teams that looked really good. I mean, there weren't a lot of good games to watch. Obviously, Miami was a winner, even though I think Florida just sucks. And I can fully admit that Billy Napier will be fired by Halloween. But most teams either played a terrible opponent like Alabama or Ole Miss, or you didn't play well against your terrible team. So everybody sucked last week. So to be fair, but I think I would probably go Oregon.
Yeah, I would go Oregon as well. Yeah, I mean, that was just shocking from them. I mean, Idaho FCS team, shout out the Kiwi Dome, Nick. But that was just shocking from them. They just did not play well. I would probably lean Oregon. That's a lot of points, though. I would probably lean Oregon in a bounce back spot here. And yeah, like Jay Walsh said, like Dylan Gabriel played really well. I mean, his stats. I mean, I think he almost threw for 300 yards or something like that, and they only scored 17 points. That's not going to happen again. I think Oregon gets it done here in a bounce back spot, minus the 18.5. Not totally confident in that, but I think they're going to be able to get it done. So yeah, Oregon's they'll bounce back here. So
I also think this is a bounce back spot for Oregon. It's just a lot of points that I'm not going to touch it because Ashon Gentry could run for another 6 touchdowns in this game. I don't think it happens, but who knows? But more importantly, Oregon did release the uniform combo for this week. It is almost the same as last week. It's green helmet with green face mask this time, green jersey, white pants. So that means absolutely nothing for the line in this game or the spread. But I figured I'd just throw that out because why not? The over does seem kind of like a play here. I know it's a lot of points, but this would be a prime Pac-12 after dark spot for a very high scoring game. But RIP Pac-12.
By the way.
Yeah, RIP Pac-12. So this kind of feels like a game where we could get a ton of points.
Which, by the way, just to piggyback off the RIP Pac-12, I don't know if any of you saw the ticker line that was reading Big 12 after dark, but I wanted to throw up when I saw pictures of that on Twitter. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that absolute monstrosity.
Okay, well, did you watch any of the Washington game on Saturday? Because Big Ten Network opened it with "Welcome to Big Ten After Dark."
It's disgusting. So
What about?
just
I mean, this Oregon game is Peacock after dark.
get
You
Peacock
have to
out
pay
of there too,
$5 a month to stay up till 2 a.m.
right? Also, shout out Ashton
Just
Genty.
remember, people, when you go out.
What were you saying, Matt? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say
I
shout out
was
Ashton
just gonna
Genty
say really
for-
quick that
Go ahead.
We're doing great here, guys.
We are. We're doing awesome. Go ahead.
All right, Matt,
I'm
you
sorry,
go
blame the
first.
Holden Wi-Fi. Jesus. All right. For the people paying the $5 or $6 a month, whatever Peacock is, to be able to watch the Packers play the Eagles in Brazil, you also get to watch the Oregon game at 2 a.m. Just remember that when you're shelling out those 6 doubloons. Go ahead, Jay. I'm so sorry. This is a disaster.
Yeah, the shout out the Holden Wi-Fi. I was gonna say shout out Ashton Genty for running for 6 touchdowns and over 200 yards. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Maybe he'll continue that. So that was just all I had to say.
And by the
No.
way, JDC, I would also like to correct you. When you were talking about the game, you said that Dylan Gabriel threw for almost 300 yards. He damn near got over 400. He was at 380 yards on the day.
Just a little off there.
Yeah.
But, you know,
So
on the LA Sports
big time performance from him in a not so stellar game. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also,
Let's get to the parlays.
just to piggyback off of what Matt said before we get to our parlays, if you are buying Peacock for that Packers-Eagles game in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in 2 weeks' time, you get to watch Tottenham play Arsenal, which I might die. So,
which, by the way,
should-
how did Tottenham do in their last Premier League game?
well,
How did that one go?
It went because St. James
It's a
Park is
match.
a house of horrors. I absolutely hate that place. So, fun times, fun times.
You know, I couldn't let that one slide. I couldn't let you get away with that one.
Yeah, I figured it was coming, but what is also coming up right now, it's our parlays for this week. So we are going to start off with the man at the top of the leaderboard right now, JDC. What is your parlay looking like for this week?
Absolutely. So I got 6 plays this week. We're going to go to the Cyhawk game in Iowa City with Iowa versus Iowa State. Iowa's a 2.5-point favorite against a pretty mediocre Iowa State team at home. I think this is easy. This is also my lock of the week. I have Iowa minus the 2.5. I got Colorado, Nebraska, the game I will be attending, over 58.5. Shout out Dylan Raiola, baby Mahomes versus Shedeur Sanders. Great matchup there. And then I got Kentucky. Yeah, exactly. I got Kentucky minus the 10.5, hosting South Carolina. South Carolina barely escaped Old Dominion, who, let's just say that's a bad football team. South Carolina is going to be pretty bad this year. I got NC State plus the 7.5 at home against Tennessee. And then Oklahoma minus the 29.5. I like that game a lot as well. And then Oklahoma State minus the 7.5 against Arkansas. So those are my plays, 6 plays for the week.
Matt, you sit in second right now. What does your parlay look like for this week?
Well, actually, I tinkered with it right before the show started after further pondering because I had Northwestern minus 2.5 on Friday night, and I simply just can't bring myself to pick it because that game could very well finish 7-3 either way, and I just don't feel like stressing out about it on this Friday night, and also means it would require me to sit and watch it, which is just not going to happen. Also, shout out Friday night, we have a noted Big 12 ACC showdown in SMU BYU. Not that I picked that game, but that game just makes me laugh. First game of the day in the noon slate, I'm going with Rutgers minus 22.5 against the Zips from Akron. Akron stinks. We saw it last week against Ohio State. So, Rutgers took care of business against Howard. They always take care of business against these bad teams early in the year, no matter how they finish, even though I think Rutgers is going to be a sneaky good team this year. They're going to take care of business, run the ball. Kyle Monangai is going to run it down Akron's throat, run the damn ball, and they're going to dominate 22.5. They should cover easily. They're going to win this game 35-0. Georgia Tech is favored by 3 at the Carrier Dome. I know some people are a little wary of Georgia Tech because they're 2-0. They're shout out UConn and Syracuse. Georgia Tech. A lot of people are a little curious are a little cautious, I should say, because they're 23rd in the country. They beat a Florida State team that's obviously not that great, and then they beat Georgia State last week. But Georgia Tech, I think 3 points on the road, it would require them to pretty much just win the game, which I think they can do against an okay Syracuse team. And I know Syracuse isn't escaping me. I know Kyle McCord played pretty well last week. I don't even know who Syracuse played, but I think Tech can win this one because they're going to run the football, because Ohio ran for 260 yards on Syracuse last week. Didn't win. Still lost by 16, but if you're giving up 260 rush yards against a MAC school, imagine what Georgia Tech's going to do to you. And that's because that's all they do is run the football. And that leads me to my second pick in that game, which is Georgia Tech, Syracuse under 61. Like I just said, Georgia Tech's going to run the football. Georgia Tech hasn't even come close to 61 points in either one of their games. It was 35-12 last week, and then I think it was 24-14 against Florida State. So 60 under 61 shouldn't be an issue. Especially, okay, so 45 still. Syracuse isn't, and Georgia Tech aren't coming close to that total of 61. So those are my first three picks. I did miss Rutgers is my lock of the week, by the way, at minus 22.5. My fourth pick is Ole Miss. They take on Middle Tennessee State, the Blue Raiders. Ole Miss put up, 70 last week against Furman? Middle Tennessee's not very good. Ole Miss minus 41.5. Jackson Dart's going to throw for 1 billion yards again. They're going to just take care of business. And then UCF minus 21 against Sam Houston State. For those that didn't see, UCF is wearing special helmets this weekend for the Children's Hospital in Orlando. That just adds on to, I think UCF's a very good football team that looked good last week against Sam Houston State, making their transition to D1. Sam Houston State, solid program at the bounce house early in the year. Give me UCF to take care of business. I believe that's a night game as well, or a late, like 5:40. It's like a weird kickoff time. And then my last game is Kansas minus 5.5. We already talked about that one. I think the Jayhawks can win by a touchdown in Champaign. So those are my 6 picks. And Rutgers minus 22.5 against Akron is the lock of the week.
I will go third because I currently sit third in the standings. And I will open up with, I believe this is the trap game of the week, maybe trap game of the season. Who knows? Kansas State is going to New Orleans this weekend, facing off against Tulane. It's a noon kickoff. Tulane, a 9.5-point dog. I love that line. This very much feels like a game Kansas State sleepwalks into, struggles. Tulane either covers or wins this game outright. I love Tulane plus 9.5. I've mentioned I have Texas and Tennessee. Both they are at 7.5. I have Texas as my lock this week. I think they win by double digits. Then we move on to my last 2 plays, both late night games. We do have some Pac-12 after dark technically. Washington State minus 1.5 versus Texas Tech. I love this game. Texas Tech almost lost Abilene Christian last week in overtime. They don't look good. Washington State, I don't know if they're great. I don't know if they're good. It's a perfect like late night type situation. Washington State gets it done. I'm pretty sure this game is on the CW. So Washington State gets it done there. And then my last game, I believe this is the latest kickoff of the week. Arizona State is hosting Mississippi State this weekend. Arizona State is a 6.5-point favorite. They completely dominated Jay Johnson's Washington Cowboys offense last week. No real surprise there, though. That was a awful performance from Wyoming. Arizona State, Mississippi State, obviously traveling basically cross country. I think Arizona State gets it done in the desert. So, Jay Walsh, we'll move on to you. Your parlay for this week.
All right, I've got my usual 5 for 5 picks this week. First pick that I'm going with is I'm taking Pitt plus 2.5 at Cincinnati. The main reasoning behind this is Pitt, they did what they needed to do against Kent State last week. Eli Holstein looked good, threw, I believe, 3 touchdown passes in that game, looked very solid. And Cincinnati really kind of failed to separate against a against Towson. So that kind of says all you need to know about the way that Cincinnati played, is that they really didn't create enough separation against Towson in that game. So I'm sticking with Pitt here. I think they go into Cincinnati, and I think they cover. My second pick is this is going to be my lock of the week, and shout out JDC. I'm rolling with Kentucky minus 10.5 here against South Carolina. Anytime a game is called midway through the third quarter with a lightning delay, you know that one of the teams is just absolutely blitzing the other. And that was the case when Kentucky played Southern Miss last week. They were up 31-0. They were just absolutely beating the dog shit out of Southern Miss, and looked like it was going to continue if not for the lightning delay. So, and as we said, South Carolina looked very unimpressive against Old Dominion. Really was not an awe-inspiring performance. I don't really necessarily care that it's at home. I'm going with Kentucky here. Like I said, that's going to be my lock of the week. My third pick is going to be Utah getting 14.5, or Utah favored by 14.5 against Baylor at home. Obviously, with both teams kind of playing cupcakes week one, with Utah versus Southern Utah and Baylor versus Tarleton, obviously we didn't really learn a ton about either one of these teams. But I'm going with experienced quarterback. Obviously, Cam Rising is about 35 years old at this point, still at Utah. So they've got the experienced quarterback. They've got the home field advantage going. I think those two things, combined with the fact that Utah is always just kind of a physical team, I think they get the job done, and they cover the 14.5 against Baylor. And then obviously we've already talked about Illinois, Kansas. I'm taking Illinois plus 5.5. Not going to get too in depth there because, like I said, we've already talked about it. And then my last pick is Texas State minus 1.5 against UTSA. UTSA looked very unimpressive against Kennesaw State, who is making the jump up to the FBS level. That was a one-score game well into the fourth quarter. I think UTSA scored the touchdown to put it out of reach with like 3-4 minutes left in that game. So that was very much not an awe-inspiring performance. Granted, Texas State didn't exactly have a awe-inspiring performance themselves in week one, but they are my pick to win the Sun Belt, and I think they get a nice bounce-back game against UTSA, and I think they get the job done after their poor showing against Lamar last week. So that's my fifth pick, is Texas State, get minus 1.5 against UTSA. Well,
gentlemen, I believe that is going to wrap it up for this week 2 preview here on the Merrifield Sportsbook Show. Do any of you have any parting comments before we leave here tonight?
Well, I just got done with my fantasy draft, so
we just how's the team looking?
We got Jalen Hurts, we got obviously Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison, Maserati Marv, George Pickens. It's looking decent. I'm cautiously optimistic. So,
how many teams were in the league?
12. So
12. All right, that's a solid squad for a 12-man.
Yeah, little Dalton Kincaid action. So we're talking about pros. We're talking about the pros, even though this is a college podcast. We love it. We love it.
Hey, it's all about football.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the love of the game.
That is what we love here, is the game. I mean, we bleed this game, it feels like. Jay Walsh, you got anything else?
Not particularly. I'm excited to obviously get out of last place in our weekly rankings here. I like my picks this week, obviously, so I'm looking to either, even if the parlay doesn't necessarily hit, I'm looking to have a winning record this week and work our way out of the doghouse here moving forward.
And then, Mr. Merrifield, we'll close with you. Do you have any parting words of wisdom before we leave here?
Nothing college related. I guess at 1:00 on Sunday afternoon, the world will hopefully realize that the Colts took the wrong quarterback. So, but hey, other than that, I got nothing. hopefully Coach Prime gets exposed on national television on Saturday night. That would make my weekend. So,
Well,
that's all I got.
it was somewhat mentioned. I feel like we should mention it before closing. Come next week, recording, we will all be over the age of 21 as Mr. Merrifield celebrates his 21st birthday on Monday. Matt, happy early birthday to you. Of course, we will probably celebrate it much more next week when you are actually of age and, can talk about gambling legally. So,
Yeah. And so I do just want to ask Mr. Merrifield, do we have a special drink planned for your first ever legal or for your first ever actual drink?
I don't have a planned one. We'll see whatever comes my way, whether it's forced upon me or not, because I'll probably be enjoying myself after the Lions Sunday night football game because it's Monday night or Monday at midnight is when I turn 21. So we'll see what the vibes are like. But maybe I'll drink like a 12 pack on during recording next week. Maybe that's the way I celebrate properly. See if in the hour 20 I can get down 12 beers.
well, gentlemen, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, all four of you. Well, three of you. I'm not including myself. Thank you for joining tonight for this show. If you are just stumbling across this, click like, click subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. Follow the Merrifield Sportsbook on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's Twitter at Merrifield S Book. I believe it is. We corrected that last week. I believe it is. You can find us all there too. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week for the week 3 edition of the Merrifield Sportsbook Show.